up, y'all? Welcome back. How's it going, everybody? How you guys doing today? I'm doing pretty good. I do apologize about not being around. I had a bunch of content I did want to put up. Unfortunately, I lost all of that in a hard drive issue I'm working on right now. I think I mentioned that before, but I bought a new hard drive now, so we're moving forward. I'm kind of washing my hands from it. I have another channel that is having a similar problem, but that one is more of a whatchamacallit, a cloud issue, so we can resolve that one. That one's easy. Those videos are on the cloud, so thank God, because that, like I said, before the move and then after the move, those are going to be different. You're going to notice that there's no desktop stuff. There's no, I'm out in the wilderness and talking to you about stuff. So here's the thing. I want to talk about something today where it kind of is one of those topics that is kind of controversial, but I don't care anymore. I think controversial topics are important to kind of cover because even though they are controversial, there's some truth to it. There's always truth to the things that people don't want to talk about, especially if those things that people don't want to talk about have less and less people talking about them. Now there's going to be more fruit to bear from it, right? Because the more conversations that happen about something, the more repetitive it gets, right? Whereas if less people talk about something, then the more conversations you have after the fact, the more gold you'll probably find. So diversity in comics, aka Zack, aka Comics Matter with your boy Zack, talked about something a couple weeks ago, talking about how men consume media and how women consume media and how those are different. Specifically when it comes to fantasy, right? Escaping into fiction, right? You're trying to look for immersion. You're trying to immerse yourself into a world, right? One of the things that I've noticed that's very prominent, in my opinion, is when you see, men create something, they don't often try to change the content. They're trying to, kind of put their own mark on it, but they have the nuance of it being in the same world, right? The characters act similar to how they normally should be. Again, that's just my experience, okay? Your experience may vary. You may have content creators, you may have novelists, you may have comic book writers who have completely different changes on characters, and I personally have not had that experience, so your results may vary. But he was talking about how when they try to consume media, they just want immersion. They want to get in that world and just escape the normal world, right? You want something different. You want a different flavor. That's why you're consuming the media in the first place, right? You want to be in that space where you're in a completely different environment, life, the possibilities of such things. I think that's why, sci-fi is so prominent when it comes to rethinking how we can live our lives, because it kind of starts the gears of like what's possible for us, what kind of lifestyles, what kind of philosophies. One of the biggest changes in literature was the sci-fi revolution, and that's because it varied. Like the worlds in the sci-fi space back in the day varied from our current day, from our current lives, from what we're used to. Look at Star Trek from the 60s and all the cultures they were experiencing. They were different, they were strange, they were alien. They kind of challenged you. They made you think about things differently. One of the things that I liked about cyberpunk dystopias was it made you think about things differently. It kind of kept me criticizing my own corporate consumption in check, right? It kept myself from being a corporate simp, right? You kind of question your level of consumption of corporate media and how much of a fanboy you are, right? That was one of the things, which is why I really did appreciate cyberpunk, especially back in the day in the 90s when I read it a lot, in the early 2000s when I read it a lot. And when you see media today kind of become the parody of itself, right? When you see it become the parody of what we were criticizing, right? When you look at sci-fi and it criticizes, being a Borg, being an NPC, being something that is, what's that term called? You're not thinking for yourself. You're not taking parts of everything, right? You're, wholly consuming the entire media. It's interesting how that cycle has circled back, right? Where a lot of people are actually becoming that. They're becoming the Borg. They're becoming, iterative. They're becoming NPCs. They're not thinking for themselves, right? And a lot of the creators, which is really shocking today, like modern day creators, a lot of them are that. They're part of the Borg. They're part of this like corporate culture. This, it's very weird. It's very weird. And I think one of the greatest things about that, it makes you kind of rethink like how you consume your own media. Like, are you consuming too much of it? Are you becoming obsessed with, social media? Are you also becoming somebody who doesn't really think about what you're reading? I think it's fascinating. A lot of people kind of falling into that gap of like, oh, it's okay because we're the good guys kind of thing. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles is the are we the good guys? I think if in very rare occasions you could do something subversive, that's very interesting. But I think we're in the era, we're so knee deep in the subversive culture when it comes to media and what you create and what you consume, that I think now we're like in that oversaturation point that in a way just telling a story straight is subversive in and of itself now. Like, it's become the norm where it has to be subversive. Like, the audience is expecting something subversive, where if you just tell the story straight, you would probably subvert their expectations. Like the majority audience, not the people like us who already are like exposed to it and are hip to it and are super critical. And we are in a very weird position where we kind of can see different angles. And I think once you've kind of been in it for as long as we have, like if you've been consuming fantasy for 20 years or so, you kind of pick up on patterns, you kind of pick up on tone, you kind of pick up on similar styles of writing and what they're trying to do and what their attempts are, and the themes. And when you kind of look at the audience, like the major audience, they're not in that wheelhouse. It's kind of the major mainstream audience people are the kind of people who they go through cycles, right? They go through cycles of people, right? You're gonna see a new audience every 5 years. I think that's like the biggest thing people forget is every 5 years, everything kind of resets. Like, especially now in the age of the internet, where a week goes by and that's like, a week is almost like now a year at this point, right? Everything is lightning fast. So whereas something that back in the day, like in the 90s, if you read something, a book, it would still be talked about 2 years from now. It would be a big deal still 2 years from now. Now nowadays, if something's a bestseller 6 months ago, I mean, it may as well have been a bestseller 5 years ago at this point, right? Not to like downplay bestsellers, but you get what I'm saying. Like the cycle, as we go further into the future, the cycle goes faster and faster and faster. So new audiences are formed every like more than 5 years almost at this point. Like, it's getting bigger and bigger. Like the wheel spins faster and faster to the point now where if you went 3 years, you probably have a new audience. One of the biggest problems I think we face today is, we don't really think about how we consume our media, right? We just kind of just endless scroll. People call it the doom scroll, right? You just keep scrolling and reading all this stuff, and you don't question it. You just kind of keep going about your day. And you kind of let it affect you, right? You let it affect you, let it program you. And I think that's one of the things that we have to kind of be careful about. You see how this all ties in together? There's immersion and then learning to disengage from the immersion, right? You read the thing, you enjoy the thing, maybe you participate in the communities of the thing, and then when it comes time to put it down, you put it down. A lot of people, what they do is they take that thing and then they become they become obsessed with said thing, and they let it take over their lives, and then now they're no longer themselves. They're like part of this Borg, as opposed to just like, this is just something I enjoy. I think that's a fascinating rabbit hole. I don't think that gets talked about enough. I think people talk more about the social media aspect of it, when people get obsessed about social media, they let it affect them. But I think that's more of a symptom, not like the actual problem. I think the actual problem is people over consuming and not thinking about what they're consuming, right? And I'm not saying you should be on all the time and criticizing everything. I'm saying you should, there's a difference between consuming everything and then, kind of looking at what you're consuming as you go versus like being obsessed about every single thing. I think that's unhealthy. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate your time. Have a great day. Bye.